that is a smart thing to do. And if you don't want to read a book, you just want to listen in, then just listen in. But if you like, today we're reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We're on chapter 4, Autosuggestion. And like and subscribe to join our daily book club readings, our daily meetings. And you'll be able to jump in on the next book, which is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, another good book. Yesterday we read the chapter on faith. I'll be honest. A couple weeks ago we were reading Master Key to Riches, also by Napoleon Hill. Applied faith in that book, probably better than this faith, but maybe, I don't know, doesn't matter. What it is for certain is what I'm telling you right here. I might have some errors while I'm reading. I might have some long pauses because I'm thinking over it. I might reread something because I'd like to grasp it another way. Maybe I didn't fully hear it, or maybe it's another perspective. What I'm setting an intention here with is for additional space, errors, minor glitches in my reading, you know, for them to, in fact, give you greater epiphanies in your life. Because really, what you're trying to get from these books, these like Think and Grow Rich, is the frequency of the book based on what the author was intending for the readers, as well as the actual words going into your mind and you learning something. Like today, we're reading on autosuggestion and also on another thing I'll tell you when we get there. Specialized knowledge, it looks like. So today we're reading chapter 4 and chapter 5. And because chapter 4 starts with a new section, we're going to read what it says. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. So take that and learn from it. Chapter 4, Autosuggestion, the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. The third step to riches. Autosuggestion is a term that applies to all suggestions and all administered stimuli that reach one's mind through the five senses. Stated in another way, autosuggestion is self-suggestion. It is the agency of communication between that part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious mind. Through the dominating thoughts, one permits to remain in the conscious mind, whether these thoughts be negative or positive. The principle of autosuggestion voluntarily reaches the subconscious mind and influences it with these thoughts. No thought, whether it is negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion. With the exception of thoughts picked up from the ether, stated differently, all sense impressions which are perceived through the five senses are stopped by the conscious thinking mind and may be either passed on to the subconscious mind or rejected at will. The conscious faculty serves therefore as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. Nature has so built us that we have absolute control over the material which reaches our subconscious mind through our five senses. Although this is not meant to be construed as a statement that we always exercise this control, in the great majority of instances, we do not exercise it, which explains why so many people go through life in poverty. Recall what has been said about the subconscious mind resembling a fertile garden spot in which weeds will grow in abundance if the seeds of our desirable crops are not sown there. Autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed the subconscious mind thoughts of a creative nature or by neglect Permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into this rich garden of the mind. You were instructed in the last of the 6 steps described in Chapter 2 to read aloud twice daily the written statement of your desire for money and to see and feel yourself already in the possession of the money. By following these instructions, you communicate the object of your desire directly to your subconscious mind in a spirit of absolute faith. Through repetition of this procedure, you voluntarily create thought habits favorable to your efforts to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent. Go back to these 6 steps described in Chapter 2 and read them again very carefully before you proceed further. Then, when you come to it, read very carefully the 4 instructions for the organization of your mastermind group described in Chapter 7 by comparing these 2 sets of instructions with that which has been stated on autosuggestion. You will see that the instructions involve the application of the principle of autosuggestion. Remember, therefore, when reading aloud the statement of your desire, through which you are endeavoring to develop a money consciousness, that the mere reading of the words is of no consequence unless you mix emotion or feeling with your words. If you repeat a million times the famous Emily Koo formula, day by day in every way, I am getting better and better, without mixing emotion and faith with your words, you will experience no desirable results. Your subconscious mind recognizes and acts only upon thoughts that have been well mixed with emotion or feeling. This is a fact of such importance as to warrant repetition in practically every chapter. The lack of understanding of this is the main reason the majority of people who try to apply the principle of autosuggestion get no desirable results. Plain, unemotional words do not influence the subconscious mind. You will get no appreciable results until you learn to reach your subconscious mind with thoughts or spoken words that have been well emotionalized with belief. Do not become discouraged if you cannot control and direct your emotions the first time you try to do so. Remember, there is no such possibility as something for nothing. Ability to reach and influence your subconscious mind has its price, and you must pay that price. You cannot cheat even if you desire to do so. The price of ability to influence your subconscious mind is everlasting persistence in applying the principles described here. You cannot develop the desired ability for a lower price. You and you alone must decide whether or not the reward for which you are striving, the money consciousness, is worth the price you must pay for it in effort. Wisdom and cleverness alone will not attract and remain money and retain money except in a few very instances. In a few very rare instances, where the law of averages favors the attraction of money through these sources. The method of attracting money described here does not depend upon the law of averages. Moreover, the method plays no favorites. It will work for one person as effectively as it will for another, where failure is experienced. It is the individual, not the method, which has failed. If you try and fail, make another effort, and still another until you succeed. That's all I really say. Like, that is all you really need. As long as you have a definite chief aim or a direction you're trying to go to, all you have to do after that point is just act. And just, if you're uncertain what to do, ask yourself, what is the next step? What is the first step? What is the next step that I need to do to fill in the blank? And you can, read that desire that you wrote down that was mentioned, in the previous chapter. That was just also mentioned a few paragraphs ago, right? Your ability to use the principle of autosuggestion will depend very largely upon your capacity to concentrate upon a given desire until that desire becomes a burning obsession. When you begin to carry out the instructions in connection with the 6 steps described in the second chapter, it will be necessary for you to make use of the principle of concentration. Let us here offer suggestions for the effective use of concentration. When you begin to carry out the first of the 6 steps, which instructs you to fix in your own mind the exact amount of money you desire, hold your thoughts on that amount of money by concentration or fixation of attention, which your eyes closed. I'm going to reread that. This is really good. Let us here offer suggestions for the effective use of concentration. When you begin to carry out the first of the 6 steps, which instructs you to fix in your own mind the exact amount of money you desire, hold your thoughts on that amount of money by concentration or fixation of attention, which with your eyes closed, until you can actually see the physical appearance of the money. Do this at least once each day. Hey, cheers, by the way. Ask any questions you want in the comments. As you go through these exercises, follow the instructions given in the chapter on faith and see yourself actually in possession of the money. Here is a most significant fact. The subconscious mind takes any orders given it in a spirit of absolute faith and acts upon, pardon me, and acts upon those orders, although the orders often have to be presented over and over again through repetition before they are interpreted by the subconscious mind, and to consider the possibility of playing perfectly legitimate trick on your subconscious mind by making it believe, because you believe it, that you must have the amount of money you are visualizing, that this money is already awaiting your claim, that the subconscious mind must hand over to you practical plans for acquiring the money which is yours. Hand over this thought to your imagination and see what your imagination can or will do to create practical plans for the accumulation of money through transmutation of your desire. Listen, if you're just starting to read daily, read out loud, because that's what cured my ADD, ADHD for reading. I just read out loud. Do not wait for a definite plan through which you intend to exchange services or merchandise in return for the money you are visualizing. Begin at once to see yourself in possession of the money, demanding and expecting, meanwhile, that your subconscious mind will hand over the money or plans you need. Be on the alert for these plans, and when they appear, put them into action immediately. They will probably flash into your mind through the sixth sense in the form of an inspiration. This inspiration may be considered a direct message from infinite intelligence. Treat it with respect and act upon it as soon as you receive it. Failure to do this will be fatal to your success. In the fourth of the 6 steps, you are instructed to create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once to put this plan into action. You should follow this instruction in the manner described in the preceding paragraph. Do not trust to your reason when creating your plan. Pardon me. Your reason is faulty. Moreover, your reasoning faculty may be lazy, and if you depend entirely upon it to serve you, it may disappoint you. When visualizing the money you intend to accumulate with closed eyes, see yourself rendering the service or delivering the merchandise you intend to give in return for this money. This is important. Summary of instructions. The fact that you are reading this book is an indication that you earnestly seek knowledge. It is also an indication that you are a student of this subject. If you are only a student, there is a chance you may learn much, but you will learn only by assuming an attitude of humility. If you choose to follow some of the instructions but neglect or refuse to follow others, you will fail. To get satisfactory results, you must follow all instructions in a spirit of faith. The instructions given in connection with the 6 steps in Chapter 2 will now be summarized and blended with the principles covered by this chapter. All right, this is important right here. This is the breakdown of it. 1. Go into some quiet spot, preferably in a bed at night, where you will not be disturbed or interrupted. Close your eyes and repeat aloud so you may hear your own words, the written statement of the amount of money you intend to accumulate, the time limit for its accumulation, and a description of the service or merchandise you intend to give in return for the money. As you carry out these instructions, see yourself already in possession of the money. For example, suppose you intend to accumulate $100,000 by the 1st of January, 5 years hence, and that you intend to give personal services in return for the money in the capacity of a sales representative. Your written statement of your purpose should be similar to the following. By the first day of January 2nd, I will have in my possession $100,000, which will come to me in various amounts from time to time during the interim. In return for this money, I will give the most efficient service of which I am capable, rendering the fullest possible quantity and the best possible quality of service as a sales representative of describe the service or merchandise you intend to sell. I believe I will have this money in my possession. My faith is so strong that I can now see this money before my eyes. I can touch it with my hands. It is now awaiting transfer to me in the proportion that I deliver the service I intend to render in return for it. I am awaiting a plan by which to accumulate this money, and I will follow that plan when it is received. Repeat this program night and morning until you can see in your imagination the money you intend to accumulate. Place a written copy of your statement where you can see it night and morning. Read it just before retiring upon rising until it has been memorized. As you carry out these instructions, remember that you are applying the principle of autosuggestion for the purpose of giving orders to your subconscious mind. Remember also that your subconscious mind will act only upon instructions that are emotionalized and handed over to it with feeling. Faith is the strongest and most productive of the emotions. Follow the instructions given in Chapter 3. These instructions may at first seem abstract. Do not let this disturb you. Follow them anyway. The time will soon come if you do as you have been instructed in spirit as well as in action, when a whole new universe of power will unfold to you. Skepticism in connection with all new ideas is characteristic of all human beings, but if you follow the instruction with all new ideas, skepticism in connection with all new ideas is characteristic of all human beings. But if you follow the instructions outlined, your skepticism will soon be replaced by belief, and this in turn will soon become crystallized into absolute faith. Then you will have arrived at the point where you may truly say, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Many philosophers have made the statement that people have control over their own earthly destinies, but most of them have failed to say why this is. The reason why one may control one's own earthly status, and especially one's financial status, is thoroughly explained in this chapter. People may gain control of themselves and their environment because they have the power to influence their own subconscious minds. And though it gained the cooperation of infinite intelligence. You are now reading the chapter that represents the keystone to the arch of this philosophy. The instructions contained in this chapter must be understood and applied with persistence if you are to succeed in transmuting desire into money. The actual performance of transmuting desire into money involves the use of autosuggestion as an agency by which one may reach and influence the subconscious mind. The other principles are simply tools with which to apply autosuggestion. Keep this thought in mind And you will, at all times, be conscious of the important part of the principle of autosuggestion is to play in your efforts to accumulate money through the methods described in this book. Carry out these instructions as though you were a small child. Inject into your efforts something of the faith of a child. The author has been most careful to see that no impractical instructions have been included because of his sincere desire to be helpful. After you have read the entire book, come back to this chapter and follow in spirit and in action this instruction. Read the entire chapter aloud once every night until you become thoroughly convinced that the principle of autosuggestion is sound, that it will accomplish for you all that has been claimed for it. As you read, underscore with a pencil every sentence that impresses you favorably. Follow this instruction to the letter, and it will open the way for a complete understanding and mastery of the principles of success. That was chapter 4, which was autosuggestion. And now we're going to read chapter 5, specialized knowledge, personal experiences or observations, the fourth step to riches. There are two kinds of knowledge. One is general, the other is specialized. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety, it may be is of but little use in the accumulation of money. The faculties of the great universities possess in the aggregate practically every form of general knowledge known to civilization. They specialize in teaching knowledge, but they do not specialize in the organization or the use of knowledge. Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money. Lack of understanding of this fact. So, since this is an important fact, I'm going to read it one more time. Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action. Yes, of course. To the definite end of accumulation of money. Lack of understanding of this fact has been the source of confusion to millions of people who falsely believe that knowledge is power. Holy cow. Pardon my yawning. It is nothing of the sort. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when and if it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. The missing link in all systems of education known to civilization today may be found in the failure of educational institutions to teach their students how to organize and use knowledge after they acquire it. Hey, just in case this is your first time, like and subscribe, and you'll be able to join us in the future lives. Many people make the mistake of assuming that because Henry Ford had but little schooling, he's not a man of education. Those who make this mistake do not know Henry Ford, nor do they understand the real meaning of the word educate. That word is derived from the Latin educo, meaning to induce, to draw out, to develop from within. An educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. Educated people have developed the faculties of their minds so that they may acquire anything they want, or its equivalent, without violating the rights of others. Henry Ford comes well within the meaning of this definition. During World War I, a Chicago newspaper published certain editorials. I gotta get some more water. I'll be right back. All right, I've got my water. I've got my water. An educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general specialized knowledge. Educated people have developed the faculties of their minds so that they may acquire anything they want, or its equivalent, without violating the rights of others. Henry Ford comes well within the meaning of this definition. Listen to this story, this is pretty intense. During World War I, a Chicago newspaper published certain editorials in which, among other statements, Henry Ford was called an ignorant pacifist. Mr. Ford objected to the statements and brought a suit against the paper for libeling him. When the suit was tried in the courts, the attorneys for the paper pleaded justification and placed Mr. Ford himself on the witness stand for the purpose of providing the jury that he was ignorant. The attorneys asked Mr. Ford a great variety of questions, all of them intended to prove by his own evidence that while he might possess considerable specialized knowledge pertaining to the manufacture of cars, he was in the main ignorant. Mr. Ford was plied with such questions as the following. Who was Benedict Arnold? And how many soldiers did the British send over to America to put down the rebellion of 1776? In answer to the last question, Mr. Ford replied, I do not know the exact number of soldiers the British sent over, but I have heard that it was a considerably larger number than ever went back. Finally, Mr. Ford became tired of this line of questioning. In reply to a particularly offensive question, he leaned over, pointed his finger at the lawyer who had asked the question, and said, If I should really want to answer the foolish question you have just asked, or any of the other questions you have been asking me, let me remind you that I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk, and by pushing the right button, I can summon to my aid people who can answer any question I desire to ask concerning the business to which I am devoting most of my efforts. Now, will you kindly tell me why I should clutter up my mind with general knowledge for the purpose of being able to answer questions when I have people around me who can supply any knowledge I require? There certainly was good logic to that reply. That answer floored the lawyer. Every person in the courtroom realized it was the answer not of an ignorant man, but of a man of education. Any person who is educated, any person is educated who knows where to get knowledge when needed and how to organize that knowledge into definite plans of action. Through the assistance of his mastermind group, Henry Ford had at his command all the specialized knowledge he needed to enable him to become one of the wealthiest men in America. It was not essential that he have this knowledge in his own mind. Surely no person who has sufficient inclination and intelligence to read a book of this nature can possibly miss the significance of this illustration. Before you can be sure of your ability to transmute desire into its monetary equivalent, you will require specialized knowledge. The specialized knowledge of the service, merchandise, or profession you intend to offer in return for fortune. Perhaps you may need much more specialized knowledge than you have the ability or inclination to acquire, and if this should be true, you may bridge your weakness through the aid of your mastermind group. Andrew Carnegie stated that he personally knew nothing about the technical end of the steel business. Moreover, he did not particularly care to know anything about it. The specialized knowledge she required for the manufacture and marketing of steel was steel he found available through the individual units of his mastermind group. The accumulation of great fortunes calls for power, and power is acquired through highly organized and intelligently directed specialized knowledge. But that knowledge does not necessarily have to be in the possession of the person who accumulates the fortune. The preceding paragraph should give hope and encouragement to the individuals with ambition to accumulate a fortune who have not acquired the necessary education to supply such specialized knowledge as may be needed. People sometimes go through life suffering from inferiority complexes because they do not have formal education. The person who can organize and direct a mastermind group of people who possess knowledge useful in the accumulation of money is just as much an educated person as one in the group. Remember this remember this if you suffer from a feeling of inferiority because your schooling has been limited. Thomas A. Edison had only 3 months of schooling during his entire life. He did not lack education, neither did he die poor. Henry Ford had limited schooling, but he managed to do pretty well by himself financially. The fact that Ford and Edison did not have much formal schooling does not give today's young people an excuse to drop out of school. Today, a minimum standard of formal education is necessary to get a good start in the world of business. Of course, there are expectations. Dave Thomas, who founded the Wendy's restaurant chain, was a dropout, but after he achieved success, he encouraged youngsters to continue their schooling. He backed this up by choosing to be an example to dropouts by working to get his own high school diploma 45 years after he left school. He took and passed his general education development exam, the equivalent of a high school diploma. He was awarded the diploma during a special ceremony at a school in the community in which he resides in Florida. Thomas addressed more than 500 students from the school, as well as GED candidates from across the state. Being a high school dropout was always being a high school dropout has always bothered me, but I guess excuse me. But I guess I always thought it was too late to get my diploma, said an enthusiastic Thomas. Now I know it's never too late, and maybe this will inspire others to do the same. The inspiration to get his diploma came to Thomas during a cross-country book tour promoting his autobiography, Dave's Way. In many cities, Thomas met with high school journalists, answering their questions, offering advice, and encouraging students to stay in school and succeed. These high school journalists were very sharp, said Thomas. They kept asking me why I say education is so important, yet I never finished school. Why didn't I practice what I preached? I didn't have a good answer, so I decided to get my high school diploma. His goal now is to publicize to school dropouts, whether they've recently dropped out or whether it's been years since they've been in school, that it's never too late to graduate. I tell people to get all the education they possibly can. The fact that I got my diploma 45 years after dropping out shows that it's never too late, said Thomas. Pardon me. Even with everything that's happened in my life, getting this diploma is one of my most important accomplishments. It pays to know how to purchase knowledge. First of all, decide on the sort of specialized knowledge you require and the purpose for which it is needed. To a large extent, your major purpose in life, the goal toward which you are working, will help determine what knowledge you need. With this question settled, your next move requires that You have accurate information concerning dependable sources of knowledge. The more important of these are A. One's own experience and education. B. Experience and education available through cooperation of others. C. College and universities. D. Public libraries. Thoughts, books, periodicals. Um, A. One's own experience and education. B. Experience and education available through cooperation of others. C. Colleges and universities. D. Public libraries through books and periodicals in which may be found all the knowledge organized by civilization. E. Special training course through evening classes and distance learning courses in particular. As knowledge is acquired, it must be organized and put into use for a definite purpose through practical plans. Knowledge has no value except that which can be gained from its application toward some worthy end. This is one reason why university degrees are not guarantees of successful careers. If you contemplate taking additional schooling, first determine the power for which you want the knowledge you are seeking, then learn where the particular sort of knowledge can be obtained from reliable sources. Successful people in all callings never stop acquiring specialized knowledge related to their major Successful people in all callings never stop acquiring specialized knowledge related to their major purpose, business, or profession. Those who are not successful usually make the mistake of believing that the knowledge acquiring period ends when they finish school. The truth is that the truth is that schooling does little more than point one in the direction of how to acquire practical knowledge. Year after year, university career advisors report that recruiters who come to the campuses are chiefly interested in hiring students who have studied in a specialized field such as business management, computer science, mathematics, chemistry, and other areas that prepare them to move quickly into productive jobs rather than the liberal arts students who have broader but unspecialized schooling. However, there are many students with great potential who did not choose a specialization because they were not sure at age 18 to 20 in what areas they wanted to make their careers. Many of these men and women have a diversified education as undergraduates, but choose a career-oriented path postgraduate qualification. Young leaders of this book should not rush into choosing a specialty until they are However, there are many students with great potential who did not choose a specialization because they were not sure at age 18 to 20 in what areas they wanted to make their careers. Many of these men and women have a diversified education as undergraduates but choose a career-oriented postgraduate qualification. Young readers of this book should not rush into choosing a specialty until they learn enough about what the field entails, its opportunities, and its disadvantages. Most universities and colleges provide information and guidance to students to help them make this key decision. whether or not such guidance is available. Students should explore a variety of fields, and most universities and colleges provide information and guidance to students to help them make this key decision. Whether or not such guidance is available, students should explore a variety of fields, read as much as possible about that field, and talk with people who currently are engaged in that work. Not all careers require university degrees, other types of training are available. Most universities have continuing education programs for people who want specialized knowledge. Some offer certificate programs in which people desirous of either learning a new field or honing their skill in that field can take a series of carefully designed courses to obtain the necessary knowledge. These courses are given in the everything or at weekends. These courses are given in the evening or at weekends and are usually attended by adults rather than college age students. Home study programs are often referred to as distance learning. Um, distance learning. Home study programs, often referred to as distance learning, are available by correspondence or through the internet. One advantage of home study is the flexibility of the program that permits one to study during spare time. Another stupendous advantage, if the provider is carefully chosen, is the fact that most courses offered provide opportunity for students to obtain clarification or additional information by the mail or mhm. Self-discipline one receives from a definite program of specialized study makes up to some extent for the wasted opportunity when nothing was available without cost. The home and method of training is subsequently self-discipline one receives from a definite program of specialized study makes up to some extent for the wasted opportunity when knowledge was available without cost. The home study method of training is especially suited to the needs of employed people who find after leaving school that they must acquire additional specialized knowledge but cannot spare it. Let's see, but cannot spare the time to go back to school. The continuously changing economic conditions in our society have made it necessary for thousands of people to find additional or new sources of income. For the majority of solutions to their problems may be found only by acquiring specialized knowledge. Many will be forced to change their occupations entirely. When a when a merchant finds that a certain line of merchandise is not selling, he usually supplants it with another that is in demand. People whose business is that of marketing their service must also be efficient merchants. If their services do not bring adequate returns to one occupation, they must change to another where broader opportunities are available. People who stop studying merely because they have finished school are forever hopelessly doomed to mediocrity. For the majority of the solution of the problems may be found only by acquiring specialized knowledge. Many will be forced to change their occupations entirely. When a merchant finds that a certain line of merchandise is not selling, he usually supplants it with another that is in demand. People whose business is that of marketing their service must also be efficient merchants. If their services do not bring adequate returns in one occupation, they must change to another where broader opportunities are available. People who stop studying merely because they have finished school are forever hopelessly doomed to the mediocrity, no matter what their ceiling, you know? During an economic downturn, a salesman in a grocery store was made redundant. Rather than seek a job in an economy where jobs were scarce, he chose to create a business of his own. He had some bookkeeping experience, so he took a special course in accounting, familiarizing himself with the latest bookkeeping techniques and office equipment. Starting with the grocer for whom he had formerly worked, he made contracts with more than 100 small merchants to keep their books at a very nominal fee. His idea was so practical that he soon found it necessary to set up a portable office in a light delivery truck which he equipped with the modern office equipment. He now has a fleet of these um, bookkeeping offices on wheels and employs a large staff of assistants, thus providing small merchants with accounting service equal to the best money can buy at very nominal cost. Specialized knowledge plus imagination were the ingredients that went into this unique and successful business. Last year, the owner of that business paid income tax almost 10 times as much as he was paid. The beginning of this successful business was an idea, inasmuch as I had the privilege of supplying the unemployed salesman with that idea. I now assume the father privilege of suggesting another idea that has within it the possibility of even greater income plus the possibility of rendering useful services to thousands of people who had badly needed that service, keeping books on a wholesome bias. The beginning of this successful business was an idea inasmuch people who badly need that service. The idea was suggested to the salesman who gave up selling and went into the business of keeping books on a wholesale basis. When the plan was suggested as a solution to his unemployment problem, he quickly exclaimed, I like the idea, but I would not know how to turn it into cash. In other words, he complained he would not know how to market his bookkeeping knowledge after he acquired it. So that brought up another problem to be solved. With the aid of a young woman clever at hand lettering and who could put the story together, a very attractive book was prepared describing the advantages of the new system of bookkeeping. The pages were neatly typed and pasted in an ordinary scrapbook, which was used as a sales tool. The story of this new business was so effectively told that its owner had more accounts than he could handle. Thousands of people knew Thousands of people need the services of merchandising specializes capable of Thousands of people need the services of a merchandising specialist capable of preparing an attractive brief for use in marketing their services. The aggregate annual income from such a service might easily exceed that received by the largest employment agency, and the benefits of the service might be made far greater. The idea here described was born of necessity to bring an emergency that had to be covered, but it did not stop by merely serving one person. The woman who created the idea has a keen imagination. She saw in her newly born brainchild the making of a new profession, one destined to provide a valuable service to thousands of people who need practical guidance in marketing their services. Spurred to action by the instantaneous success of her first prepared plan to market services, this energetic woman told me, well, you gotta do this together anyway. This energetic woman, spurred to action by instantaneous success of her first prepared plan to market services. This energetic woman turned next to the solution of a problem for her son, who had just finished college but had been totally unable to find a market for his services. The plan she originated for his use was the first specimen of merchandising of services I've ever seen. When the plan book had been completed, it contained nearly 50 pages of beautifully typed, properly organized information telling the story of her son's nature, ability, schooling, and personal experiences, and a great variety of other information too extensive for description. Personal experiences and a great variety of other information too extensive for description. The plan book also contained a complete description of the position her son desired, together with a marvelous word picture of the exact plan he would use in filling the position. The preparation of the plan book required several weeks' labor, during which time its creator sent her son to the public library almost daily to procure data needed in selling his services to best advantage. She also sent him to all the competitors of his perspective. When the plan book had been completed, it contained nearly 50 pages of beautifully typed, properly organized information telling the story of her son's natural ability, schooling, and personal experiences, and a great variety of other information too extensive for description. The plan book also contained a complete description of the position her son desired, together with a marvelous word picture of the exact plan he would use in filling the position. The preparation of the plan book required several weeks' labor, during which time its creator sent her son to the public library almost daily to procure data needed in selling his services to best advantage. She also sent him to all the competitors of their prospective employer and gathered from them vital information concerning their business methods, which was of great value in the formation of the plan they intended to use us in the filling the position he sought. When the plan had been finished, it contained more than half a dozen very fine suggestions for the use and benefit of the When the plan had been finished, it contained more than a half a dozen very fine suggestions for the use and benefit of the prospective employer, which were put to use by the company after he was hired. On one May, he inclined to ask, why go to all of this trouble to secure a job? The answer is straight to the point. It is also dramatic because it deals with a subject which assumes the proportion of a tragedy, with millions of men and women whose sole source of income is their services. The answer is doing a thing well is never trouble. The plan prepared by this woman for the benefit of her son helped him get the job. for which he applied at the first interview at a salary fixed by himself. Moreover, and this too is important, the position did not require the young man to start at the bottom. He began as a junior executive at an executive's salary. Why go to all this trouble, do you ask? Well, for one thing, the planned presentation of this young man's application for a position clipped off. Tak, bierzemy to całe. Why go to all this trouble, do you ask? Well, for one thing, the planned presentation of this young man's application for a position clipped off no less than 10 years of time he would have required to get to where he began had he started at the bottom and worked his way up. This idea of starting at the bottom. This idea of starting at the bottom and working one's way up may appear sound, but the major objection to it is this. Too many of those who begin at the bottom never manage to lift their heads high enough to be seen by opportunity, so they remain at the bottom. It should be remembered also that the outlook from the bottom is not so very bright or encouraging. It has a tendency to kill off ambition. We call it getting into a rut, which means we accept our fate because we form the habit of daily routine, a habit that finally becomes so strong we cease to try to throw it off. And what is another reason why it pays to start one of the two steps above the bottom? By doing so, one forms the habit of looking around, of observing how often others get ahead, of seeing opportunity, and of embracing it without hesitation. Dan Halpin is a splendid example of what I mean. During his college days, he was student manager of the famous 1930 national championship Notre Dame football team. When it was perhaps he was inspired. Okay, championship Notre Dame football team. When it was under the direction of Knute Rockne. Perhaps he was considered by Rockne to aim high. Not mistake temporary defeat for failure. Just as Andrew Carnegie, the great industrial leader, inspired his young business lieutenants to set high goals for themselves. At any rate, young Halpin finished college at a mighty unfavorable time when the Depression had made jobs scarce. So after a fling at an investment banking and motion pictures, he took the first opening with a potential future he could find selling them. And that's another reason why it pays to start one of the two steps above and the bottom. By so doing, one forms the habit of looking around, of observing how off others get ahead, of seeing opportunity and embracing it without hesitation. Dan Halpin is a splendid example. Of what I mean. During his college days, he was student manager of the famous 1930 national championship Notre Dame football team. When it was under the direction of the great football coach Knute Rockne, perhaps he was inspired by Rockne to aim high and not mistake temporary defeat for failure, just as Andrew Carnegie, the great industrial leader, inspired his young business lieutenants to set high goals for themselves. At any rate, young Halpin finished college at a mighty and favorable time when the Depression had made jobs scarce. So after a fling at investment banking and motion pictures, he took the first opening with a potential future he could find, selling electrical hearing aids on a communion basis. Anyone who could start in this sort of job and Halpin knew it, but it was enough to help the door of opportunity to him. For almost 2 years, he continued in a job not to his liking, and he would never have risen above that. Goodness. Helped him finish college at a mighty unfavorable time when depression had made jobs scarce. So after a fling in an investment banking and motion pictures, it took the first opening with a potential future he could find, selling electrical hearing aids on the commission basis. Anyone? For almost 2 years, he continued in a job not to his liking, and he would never have risen above the job if he had not done something about his dissatisfaction. He aimed first at the job of assistant sales manager of his company and got the job. That one step upward placed him high enough above the crowd to enable him to see still greater opportunity. In addition, it placed him where opportunity could see him. He made such a fine record selling hearing aids that A.M. Andrews, chairman of the board of the Dictograph Products Company, a business competitor, took notice. He wanted to know something about that man, Dan Halpin, who was taking big sales away from long-established Dictograph company. He sent for Halpin. When the interview was over, Halpin was the new sales manager in charge of the sconographs. Then, to test young Halpin's mettle, Mr. Andrews went away to Florida for 3 months, leaving him to sink or swim in his new job. He did not sink. Knut Rockne's spirit of all the world. Yeah, is it like, can you say oofta? He made such a fine record selling hearing aids that A.M. Andrews, chairman of the board of the Dictograph Products Company, a business competitor, took notice. He wanted to know something about that man, Dan Halpin, who was taking big sales away from the long-established Dictograph Company. He sent for Halpin. When the interview was over, Halpin was the new sales manager in charge of Dictograph's Acousticon division. Then, to test young Halpin's mettle, Mr. Andrews went away to Florida for 3 months, leaving him to sink or swim in his new job. He did not sink. Knut Rockne's spirit of all the world loves a winner and has no time for a loser inspired him to put so much into his job that he was elected vice president of the company and general manager of the Acousticon and silent radio division, a job which most men would be proud to earn through years of experience. So yeah, then to test young Halpin's mettle, Mr. Andrews went away to Florida for 3 months, leaving him to sink or swim in his new job. He did not sink. Knut Rockne's spirit of all the world loves a winner and has no time for a loser inspired him to put so much into his job that he was elected vice president of the company and general manager of the Acousticon silent radio division, a job which most men would be proud to earn through 10 years of loyalty. Halpin turned the trick in little more than 6 months. It is difficult to say whether Mr. Andrews or Mr. Halpin is more deserving of a eulogy, as both showed evidence of having an abundance of that very rare quality known as imagination. Mr. Andrews um, deserves credit for seeing in young. Mr. Andrews deserves a credit for seeing in young Halpin a go-getter of the highest order. Halpin deserves credit for refusing to compromise with life by accepting and keeping a job he did not want. This is one of the major points I am trying to emphasize through this entire philosophy, that we rise to help to high positions or remain at the bottom because of conditions we can control if we desire to control them. I am also trying to emphasize another point, namely that both success and failure are largely the results of habit. I have not the slightest doubt that Dan Halpin's close association with the greatest football coach America ever known planted in his feet the same brand of desire to excel, which made the Notre Dame football team world famous. Truly, there is something to the idea that hero worship is helpful, provided one worship was a Sochi position. It is difficult to say whether Mr. Andrews or Mr. Halpin is more deserving of eulogy, as both showed evidence of having an abundance of that very rare quality known as imagination. Mr. Andrews deserves credit for seeing in young Halpin go-getter of the highest order. Halpin deserves credits for refusing to accomplish. I'm also trying to emphasize another point, namely that both success and failure are largely results of habit. I have not the slightest doubt that Dan Halpin's close association with the greatest football coach America ever knew planted in his mind the same brand of desire to excel which made the Notre Dame football team world famous. Truly, there is something to the idea that hero. I have not the slightest doubt that Dan Halpin's close association with the greatest football coach America ever knew planted in his mind the same brand of desire to excel which made the Notre Dame football team world famous. Truly, there is something to the idea that hero worship is helpful, provided one worships a winner. Halpin tells me that Rockne was one of the world's greatest leaders of men in all history. My belief in the theory that business associations are vital from both in failure and in success was demonstrated when my son Blair was negotiating with Dan Halpin. You've done anything? So cool. My belief in the theory the business associates are vital factors both in failure and in success was demonstrated when my son Blair was negotiating with Dan Halpin for a position. Mr. Halpin offered him a starting salary of about one half what he could have got from a viral company. I brought personal pressure to bear and induced him to accept the place with Mr. Halpin. I really appreciate and apologize for that. My belief is the theory that business associates are vital factors both in failure and in success. And in success was failure. Honing one's skills to become top in one's field is not limited to people in business. Michael Jordan planned every step to becoming one of the greatest athletes of his generation. He has always had the determination to win and the willpower to keep it in shape and play his very best. He is committed to maintaining high standards and improving his own records. Jordan learned this lesson early. In high school, he was dropped from the team, but his determination to be reinstated led to his starting a heavy practice regimen daily, which he still flows which he still follows. He takes each doubt as a challenge, and each year he's had a new incentive. When he returned to basketball after a few years away from the game, his critics said he was past his prime, that he was slower, couldn't win another championship. He took this as a challenge. It was honed his determination to show them they were wrong. He worked harder than ever. He designed a year round training program with his personal trainer and his own gym and weight room. He recognized that as one grows older, he's going to start reading this. He worked harder than ever. He designed a year round training program with his personal trainer in his own gym and weight room. He recognized that as one grows older, the body starts giving signals you must listen to, and that it is essential to do things correctly to stay in the best shape possible to consistently play at championship level. The results were astounding. John led his team to the championship in 96, 97, and in both years was named the most valuable player. Michael Jordan's determination is a lesson to all of us that if we are determined to achieve our goals, neither our neither our age nor the skepticism of others can deter us. But determination is only the first step. It must be followed by hard work, a regimen of physical and mental exercise, and wherever else it takes to bring us to peak performance. The bottom is a monotonous, dreary, unprofitable place for any person. That is why I have taken the time to describe how proper planning may circumvent lowly beginnings. Also, that is why so much space has been devoted to a description of this new profession created by a woman who was inspired to do a fine job of planning because she wanted her son to have a favorable break. When the economy slows down and jobs become scarce, a means of creating newer and better ways of marketing our services is needed. It is hard to determine why someone had not previously discovered this stupendous need, in view of the fact that the more money charges hands in return for services than from the inside, actually. Perhaps some will find in the idea here briefly describe the nucleus of the riches they desire. Ideas with much less merit have been the seedlings from which great fortunes have grown. Woolworth's 5 and 10 cent store idea, for example, had far less merit, but it put up a fortune for its creator. Those seeing opportunity lurking in this suggestion will find valuable aid in the chapter Organized Planning. Incidentally, an efficient marketer of service would find a growing demand for his services, whether there are men and women who seek better markets for their services by applying mastermind principles. See page 139. A few people with suitable talent could form an alliance and have a paying business very quickly. One would need to be a fair writer with a flair for misunderstanding. Those seeing opportunity lurking in the suggestion will find valuable aid in the chapter Organized Planning. Right. One would need to be fair writer with a flair for advertising and selling. One should be handy at graphic design, and one should be a first-class great business getter who would let the world know about the service. If one person possessed all these abilities, he or she might carry on the business alone until it became too big for one person to handle. The woman who prepared the sales plan for her son received requests from all from all parts of the country for her cooperation in preparing similar plans for others who for similar plans for others who desired to market their services for more money. She eventually supervised a staff of expert typists, artists, and writers who had the ability to dramatize the case history so effectively that one's services could be marketed for much more money than prevailing. It must not be it must not be supposed that her plan merely consisted of clever salesmanship by which she helped men and women to demand and receive more money for the same services they formerly sold for less pay. She looked after the interests of the purchaser and as well as the seller of services and so prepared her plans that the employer would receive full value for the additional money paid. The method by which she accomplished this astonishing result is a professional secret that she disclosed to no one except her own clients. If you have the imagination and seek a more profitable outlook for your services, this suggestion may be the stimulus for which you have been searching. The idea is capable of yielding an income far greater than that of the average doctor, lawyer, or engineer whose education required several years in college. The idea is saleable to those seeking new positions in practically all positions calling for managerial or executive ability, and those desiring arrangement of income in their present positions. There is no fixed price for sound ideas. Underpinning all ideas is specialized knowledge for those who do not find riches in abundance. Specialized knowledge is more abundant and more easily acquired than ideas. Because of this very truth, there is a universal demand and an ever increasing opportunity for the person capable of helping men and women sell their services advantageously. Capability means imagination, the one quality needed to combine specialized knowledge with ideas in the form of organized plans designed to yield riches. If you have imagination, this chapter may present you with an idea sufficient to serve as the beginning of the riches you desire. Remember, the idea is the main thing. Specialized knowledge may be found just around the corner, any corner. We're going to read Imagination next, and that's going to be tomorrow. But man, that was a good book. That was a good 2 chapters. I appreciate you so much. Like and subscribe so that you can see when our lives pop up so that we're more connected. Hope you have a great day. Appreciate you so much. And sorry on the lags, but see you next time.